Welcome to Flight 23. Back at Sylmar, back at the tie-down straps, actually the exact same spot as on that afternoon that I flew, which would have been 4 days before this flight. Feeling like I'm just on repeat here almost, for better. Super stoked to be back here, but it was crazy. The guy running the tandem with that Dream 200 glider in the right of the shot here, he's got like the same sort of lines, which totally understandable. Would do the same thing if it was me. It was just interesting to kind of realize like, all right, I'm kind of behind the curtain in a way now of like the hang gliding community as far as regularity. Someone comes out for a tandem, awesome, highly recommended if you've never done a hang gliding thing before. It's just interesting being like, oh, like this guy does tandems a lot. And there we go. We can see that nobody's touching that glider right now. It's just getting lifted up by the wind. And so that's what I was talking about in my previous video, showing a little bit of video. And you can see on the left, actually, those track marks in the ground. But just the wind really moves these gliders around, even though they're tied down. And that's just really interesting to see. So here I am waiting for Andy to take off. He drove the truck up, and then another guy's going to drive it down. Andy's going to fly down really quick so he can be on the ground there watching me. Again, like I mentioned in the previous video, a little bit of I'm still getting certified at this site. I'm an H2, but it's an H3 site. So we have to have Andy watch me at all times I'm in the air. Still didn't get the sign off after this flight, but hopefully a few more I'll be there, or I'll get my H3 since I'm closing in on that 10 hours and hopefully do well on the written test as well as get the approval from Willie. We will see.
It's a little awkward when hooked in.
Let's track long straight later.
Okay, I'm ready to walk up.
Okay. I will get out of your way when you use the word clear. You won't have to worry about me. I'm good at getting out of your way.
Clear?
Clear.
So, got the crew on the wires, 3 people on the wires, most people I've ever had on the wires. Amazing dive there, love to see it, and we are up and away. So just trying to keep myself nice and level, not doing anything too fancy while I'm close to the ground there. Just get away from the ground, get some speed built up, get a little bit of comfortability in the air. Then I start moving around, get my pod zipped up, looking around a little bit more, thinking about where I'm going to thermal. And so for that, this means eventually turning to the right and going down this ridge a little bit, watching the other pilots, watching the ground, just getting situated, getting comfortable up in the air here. Would love any feedback on my posture because my left shoulder got really sore during this flight, and I'm not exactly sure why. I think part of it is I could be a little bit higher perhaps overall. So either angling myself up or just raising the hang loop up like an inch in the front, I think would make a pretty big difference for my shoulders. But if you have any thoughts, just kind of looking at my posture here, would love to hear them. One big thing I was thinking about during this flight after watching my last flight is keeping my mouth closed. I notice I'm just a mouth breather in the air for some reason, constantly. I'm not like that in real life in person, but for some reason up in the air, I'm a mouth breather, and I know it's like not a problem. It's okay if you're a mouth breather, don't worry. But up here in the air, in the dry air, it's actually a large disadvantage. And I'm not like a scientific guy about the mouth breathing, but I can tell you from my experience and intuition that you breathe with your mouth open, you're moving a lot more air through, and you're getting your mouth dried out because you're just allowing that dry air to suck all that moisture from your mouth and your lips. And so actually, I believe you get dehydrated faster as well as your lips dry out much faster. And the lips is the main thing I've noticed flying. As I land, I'm like, man, why are my lips so dry? And I'm just looking at the video, I'm just like, the whole time, like, oh, no wonder, dude. So now I'm like, all right, close the mouth, breathe through the nose, let the body kind of do its own natural moisture regulation a little bit better through the nose and the mouth, and really try to focus on that for this flight. You can't see it too well except for in some 360 shots, but I mean, I think it helped a little bit. And I put on shaft stick before, but just getting these little quality of life improvements figured out, getting better at that type of stuff.
That was sketch as heck.
Super interesting thing about flying at this place just 4 days apart is it feels rinse and repeat just because you're hanging out in this one area for a lot of the time. So I'm on this ridge a lot. There's that trash mountain over there to the right, and then there's another really good soaring spot directly behind me, allegedly. I haven't been there yet. But it's just interesting. I feel like I've just been at this place for a long time, and I have. I've been in the air here basically a combined hour, and it's really just on. I would love to know the distance, and I wonder how I would calculate it. I could just look at Google Maps. Maybe I'll throw the number up on the screen. But, you know, we're talking like a mile distance or less that I've just been hanging out. And so I'm really starting to feel familiar with the curves of this, even after an hour. And I cannot even imagine being a pilot that's flown here for multiple years, multiple decades. The intuition, the knowledge that you must have of time of day, where stuff is triggering, getting lift, building, must be amazing. Just all that insight to have. So stoked to continue to build up a skill set and someday just be able to kind of look at this, look at the sun, look at the lapse rate, and just know where stuff might be working. Yeah, so recording this is the day after the flight. My left shoulder is still sore, and my right shoulder's a little bit sore as well. Really, I think I've been doing some push-ups and pull-ups on the side as well as flying multiple days, like within the same week. Maybe taking a toll, maybe part of it's posture. Again, would love to hear the posture feedback. Maybe there's something easy that I can fix here to alleviate a little bit of pain that I've been feeling. Still doesn't take away from the stoke. I mean a little bit, but overall still super stoked to be in the air. Wouldn't trade it for a thing. So one big thing for this flight that's very different from the last flight that I had here in Sylmar is Andy told me to try to work on staying 2 glider lengths away from this ridge. And that's basically just so I don't have any risk of getting stuck behind the ridge, getting in that rotor, and then having to fight this like downward sinking headwind type air to get back over the ridge. And that created a couple, I would say, challenges or new situations for me in this flight because I'm trying to interact with these other gliders. So I'm not trying to, you know, get in their way, or if I'm in their way, you know, in the thermal at the same time, circling with them, doing that sort of thing. But other people didn't have this, you know, didn't have this physical restriction that I was trying to target. And so it kind of created these situations where I ended up getting a little bit more directly over the ridge, which was not my intent. I still think I kept it safe overall. I don't think I got too far behind the ridge at any point, but I got, you know, close to above it, and I was trying to not do that. So I was kind of like, all right, like really trying to lock down on this. It was just this situation would get created where, you know, I'm coming down on a circle, or not down, but I'm coming around on a circle. I got like Micah or somebody in front of me. They're doing everything right. But for me to kind of stay in that thermal with them and do things correctly, so I'm not doing something erratic, getting in their way, I kind of had to push it a little bit to the edge. Didn't love that. And so actually, I try to work out a little bit farther than I did on the previous flight. And actually, I realized in the air how thankful I was to have this kind of challenge or restriction placed on me, because it kind of pushed me out of my comfort zone as far as just trying to find the buoyant air where I thought the buoyant air was, and really just focusing on a whole new region that I wasn't even analyzing on the last flight here. And that kind of actually turned out to be, I think, more productive for me as far as finding lift. And so I was super glad for that, super thankful for that instruction. Realized it was mostly a safety thing, but I think it helps me from a skill perspective as well, just being forced to try new things out. And so this is cool. We got 3 of us here circling together. Amazing to see. Super cool. Definitely slightly stressful in the air. There's, you know, a lot of chatter on the radio back and forth. I'm trying to watch these other guys, thinking about that like 2 glider length from the ridge restriction. Decent amount of stuff going on, but still loving it. Super cool, good practice. Really like this flight from a practice perspective.
Oh, it's a menace. Woo-hoo! Holy balls!
Here, I thought I was kind of screwed, and I'll throw the number up on the screen, as you can obviously see that you've been seeing this whole time. I thought I was kind of screwed. You know, I'm sitting at 3,000 something feet. I'm like, okay, maybe I have to go out to land. What's gonna go on here? But I heard there's this volcano, and that's that shape kind of directly down to my right that could be a good trigger point and generate some lift. And I actually ended up finding great lift, so much so that I do some turns here. I look back at the main ridge, and I'm above the guys that have been working the ridge. And I'm like, what the heck? Like, this is crazy. I didn't expect this. And that's kind of what I was talking about as far as getting pushed outside my comfort zone. I would probably not have even tried this if the ridge was still working. But it actually turned out to generate even more lift. And there's some birds over here. There's some signs that this could be a good spot. But I wouldn't have put myself in this situation unless I had that instruction from Andy. So I'm so glad for that, kind of bringing me out here, trying out a new thing. And it worked great. It was super cool. And so really cool to see that.
All right, boy, I'm higher finally. feels weird closing my mouth. Left shoulder is killing. I definitely could go a little shorter on this setup, I think. Man, he looks so close to the ground. It's crazy. We are ripping this one.
Super cool feature. So coming up on it, again, it's kind of that escalator feel where, you know, you move up it and there's just crazy lifting air here. Super cool feeling. Doesn't feel like natural at all, but an amazing feeling. And that's just working really good. I'm looking over at my altitude, which is on my left on that instrument, which is my phone. Shout out to the Wingman app, best free app I've found. Fly sky high. If you had a free version, I'd be ripping you, but I like the free version for what I'm doing. I need a number with my altitude. That's all I need, and something that beeps. So loving that. Shout out to Wingman app. They're not even paying me. Maybe they'll get throw in a free subscription if I keep on plugging them. Let's see what happens. Watching those other gliders out here cruising, getting some good numbers, and I'm looking over and just like, wow, like really saved this flight. Like I thought I was toasted, and now I'm up here, you know, 3,200, 3,300, 3,400. Great numbers. Almost getting back up to launch. Like absolutely dialed in, super stoked. And I didn't realize it now, but I'm starting to think about it in the flight. Like this could be another 30-minute flight. I was like, kept on looking at the 7-8 minute mark, and I was like, okay, you know, it's gonna be a 10-minute flight. That's still solid. I'll take that. I'm stoked on that. But then at this point here, I'm looking at, you know, 20 minutes. I'm like, okay, like we could easily do another 30 minutes here, which is crazy because I have, you know, a total coming into this flight of like 7.5 hours of airtime. Before this week, I'm sitting at 7 hours. And so we're looking at, you know, over 15%, 10% of my total time in the air within the span of 4 days. Just absolutely crazy. So super stoked on that.
You don't even need the backside of the ridge. This is great. At first I was totally like, man, these guys are making me have the shortest flight ever. But in hindsight, I mean, this is great practice. Just learning how to get it done out front here. And I mean, I'm freaking cruising, dude. And it's way less sketchy for sure. This is awesome. All right, this is gonna bring me behind. It's so tough with another guy in the air. This is sick, dude. Kind of stressful flying with another person, but also so cool. Which directions? Killing me, dude. Killing me.
Yeah, I'm being cautious behind the ridge. I just said I'm being cautious behind the ridge. This is John. Micah.
Yeah, this is John here. I'm also watching out for the ridge.
I'm watching you, John. You're over at times and only a little tiny bit behind us. That's fine.
Yeah, I've been trying to stay away, but it's tough when there's someone else coming.
Yeah, you're doing a great job.
What the heck? This is so sweet. I'm back up at 34 almost. Legendary. Look at this big pocket here. Come on. Where's she at? Where's she at? Man, this air is a little chilly and you can almost taste the smoke. It's interesting. Dropping still. Solid 35-minute flight though. Just like that, we found some lift. Right as I was starting to give up hope. What the heck? Dude, this place loves the late saves. Huh? It's like twice now that I thought I was cooked.
I'm over a volcano. Alright, good flight, guys. You too, John.
Yeah, this is John here. I think I'm coming in for landing. I'm down at 2850, so gonna head on over.
Beautiful. You might see something on the way. You see to the left. Key 3 to pay attention to, John, is as you fly towards the landing area, is the landing area dropping in your field of vision, meaning that you'll arrive high. It's really well in your field of vision, indicating that you have enough altitude to go to the staging area.
Yep.
So I'm cruising out. I'm thinking I'm pretty much done with this flight at this point as far as getting lift, but actually there's these two little smaller ridges coming off the base of the volcano area that actually got some pretty good little lift pockets popping up, and I actually got a couple circles of a little bit lift, so really excited about that. You can see me turning around a little bit here. I'm like, okay, it's actually working. Like, I had a chance, I thought, of maybe even getting a third save or a second save on this flight where, you know, earlier I was like, okay, it's probably toasted, but then I got that volcano lift, popped back up, and I'm like, maybe I could even do a third save because I land later on, quickly after this, and I look up and freaking Micah's up there still ripping. The tandem landed before, but everyone else that I launched with, they're still just up there ripping, and I was like, damn, I could have easily done another hour flight if I was in the right spot. And so that just goes to show there's a lot of lift out here, and there's a lot of second chances at this area. So really love Sylmar. Highly recommend getting down here if you can. So another big thing I was trying to work on with this landing, and I'm really starting to think about that now in the air, was Andy was trying to tell me to work on a more defined downwind base and final leg. And so last time I kind of did that short field, quick U-turn, which is totally fine landing. I was super happy with. But since we have the space here, and again, good practice, glad I'm getting challenged to work on that downwind base and final, looking for like a more of a nice right angle setup. And so coming in with good altitude here, kind of for the rule of thumb, 3,000 for beginner pilots as far as leaving the soaring area. So I get down to about 2850, about halfway, you know, to the landing zone from the takeoff zone. It's like, okay, that feels like a pretty good number. I don't want to go too much lower than that. Still got plenty of altitude coming out here. And then just looking for that tree and then setting up my downwind base and final. It's actually getting kind of cold on this flight. I was like a good temp, but I was like really like on the knife's edge of getting too cold. I have my long sleeve actually inside of my pod harness right now in one of the pockets. Probably should have just thrown it on. It's just like a long sleeve athletic shirt, but probably would have been better off with that. I was noticing my fingers are getting cold as a result of the core temp dropping a little bit. They weren't like freezing cold, but my body was definitely sucking a little bit of blood out of the extremities. And so a little bit worried about that, but ended up being fine, and obviously could land at any time since we're so close to the landing zone here. But kind of a good self-reminder of, unless it's really, really hot out, you know, extra layers probably a good idea up in the air, just because you're not really burning that many calories and heating up that much. I'm just kind of circling, trying to figure out my angles. And so a big thing is that I was trying to learn after this, talking with Andy, is when you see, like when you're flying in a straight line, you see something dropping in your field of vision, that means you're going to fly over it. And if you see something rising in your field of vision, that means you're going to fly under it, or, you know, hit the ground before it. And if it's staying steady, then that's probably where you're going to impact or land. And so I'm just trying to process that now, looking at this. Kind of circling, you're not seeing it, but on the approach, you're definitely seeing it. And here I'm just kind of looking at the angles, waiting till I'm at like kind of at that 45-degree angle. And then that's when I'm going to kind of put down landing gear, unzip, and really start coming in for that downwind base and final. Pulling in, getting that speed going, kind of bleeding off all my altitude, setting it up, nice big sporty turn, trying to get that 90-degree angle, coming in, looking at my landing point, still really pulled in. And actually for a second here, I remember going through my head of, dang, like, am I gonna overshoot or undershoot? Like, I think I might overshoot, but then I'm like, no, I'm fine, I'm coming in. And it really does drop off because of that kind of ground effect. There's less wind, and I can see I push up a little bit and then do my real, so I push up, slow down, then do another push. Probably should have just done no initial push or just really forced it there. I think it would have been too high, so I'm glad with what I did. Came up a little bit short of the target point, but still solid landing, stoked on it. And actually something I just remembered, so I'll throw this in at the beginning. There's these freaking bees circling all over my harness when I was setting up, and it was kind of terrifying because I'm like, what if there's a bee inside the harness after I take off and zip up, and then it stings me because I just got stung by a bee like 2 weeks ago. And so I was thinking about, stressing about that the whole time, and for the first like 5 minutes of the flight, it's constantly going through my head too, like, is there one in here? What's going on? It's got some sort of bee pheromone smothered all over me or something. I ended up being totally fine, but kind of scary. I don't know what was going on with those bees. Like, maybe I need some bee repellent on me. But super good flight, super stoked. Huge shout out to everyone at Sylmar for making this a really good experience, as well as providing constant sage advice and just being a really welcoming community. Hope to get back here soon. Got a decent amount of stuff coming up, so I don't know the next time we'll be out, but absolutely loved it. Super great place to stage and tear down. Literally the car's right there. Great grass field to tear down on. Absolutely love the area. Shout out. Thanks so much for watching. Please keep the comments coming if you got any feedback, especially about that body position to alleviate. There's a little bit of shoulder pain that I've been feeling. Really curious if anyone has any thoughts specifically on that, as well as anything in general. And I'll catch you on the next one. Thanks again.